Hello. For as long as I'd known Megan, her life had been marked by incredible simplicity. She grew up in a modest neighborhood, with a single mother who worked tirelessly to make ends meet. Despite the financial struggles, Megan's spirit was warm and resilient, shaped by a world where the smallest pleasures were treasured. Coming from a wealthier family, I often felt both inspired by and protective of her. It was Megan's grounded perspective that had drawn me to her in the first place. One weekend, I decided to treat her to a fancy dinner, a place she'd never been to. As we sat down, the waiter asked if she'd like freshly ground pepper on her salad. She looked at me, unsure, then nodded. But as the waiter continued to grind pepper over her plate, Megan kept glancing between him and me, unsure of when to say stop. She didn't realize it was her call, and she later laughed with a little embarrassment. I didn't even know that was a thing. Moments like these became common as we spent more time together. She opened up about how different her life had been from mine. Growing up, she admitted one night, going out to a fast food place was a treat. But to you, that's just a regular meal. Over time, her stories gave me a new appreciation for the things I had always taken for granted. And as we continued sharing our lives, I started to see the world through her eyes, a world where even a simple outing could feel magical. As our relationship grew, the differences in our backgrounds became more evident. I was accustomed to a lifestyle where, if I needed or wanted something, I could generally afford it without a second thought. Megan, on the other hand, approached every expense with a certain caution, an instinct she developed over years of carefully budgeting every dollar. One evening, we went out with friends to a trendy rooftop bar. The place was upscale, with a cover charge that seemed ordinary to me but caused Megan to hesitate. She pulled me aside, whispering, "This place looks amazing, but maybe we could go somewhere a bit more low-key?" I could see the discomfort in her eyes, and I realized how much my casual spending made her uneasy. Determined to bridge the gap, I decided to suggest alternatives. "Let's find a cozy cafe instead," I said, giving her a reassuring smile. "Somewhere we can actually talk and enjoy each other's company." Her relief was instant, and the gratitude in her smile warmed me. She was so used to adjusting for others, and I wanted her to feel comfortable, not out of place. That night, as we sat in a quiet coffee shop sipping drinks that cost half of what we would have paid at the rooftop bar, Megan opened up to me about how challenging it had been growing up with so little. "Money was always tight, and we didn't go out much," she explained. "It's why I'm always cautious, even now." Her honesty made me admire her even more. I had never given much thought to budgeting, but her experience taught me to appreciate the little things and to understand that not everyone saw money the way I did. And with that, I found myself wanting to share more of my world with her, while learning to step into hers as well. Together, we were finding a balance, learning to respect each other's backgrounds. For Megan, every gesture mattered, and for me, every adjustment I made felt like a step toward something deeper, a true partnership where love could bridge even the widest financial gap. As we continued dating, Megan's influence on me grew in unexpected ways. I found myself reevaluating everyday decisions, reconsidering things I'd taken for granted. Megan's perspective was refreshingly grounded. She wasn't interested in status symbols or luxuries, but found happiness in the simplest moments. One Saturday, I suggested we go shopping. My plan was to browse some stores downtown, maybe pick up a few new outfits. Megan agreed, though I noticed a hint of reluctance. At the first store, she admired a sweater but balked at the price tag. "I could never spend that much on one thing," she said, laughing, but her words carried the weight of genuine disbelief. Curious, I asked her how she usually shopped. She smiled, pulling me out of the store and leading me to a thrift shop nearby. As we browsed, Megan's face lit up with excitement as she found treasures among the racks, carefully choosing each item with a sense of pride and satisfaction. For her, shopping wasn't about splurging on the newest trends, it was about finding value and joy in the process itself. Watching her was eye-opening. I realized that her approach to money wasn't just practical, it was thoughtful. She savored the little victories, celebrating each small find as though it were a luxury. I found myself trying on clothes with a new appreciation, enjoying the hunt, and seeing the value beyond the brand name. By the end of our shopping trip, I felt I had learned something invaluable. Megan taught me that things didn't need to be expensive to be meaningful, that joy could be found in even the simplest of choices. Her way of seeing the world started to affect mine, reminding me to look beyond convenience and price and to see the worth in things and people for who they truly were. That day marked a shift in our relationship. It wasn't just about us learning each other's habits or adjusting to our financial differences, it was about genuinely embracing each other's worlds. Megan showed me that love is sometimes about finding value where others overlook it, and I couldn't have been more grateful. As my relationship with Megan deepened, I realized it was time to introduce her to my family. Although they'd always been supportive of me, I knew they had a certain lifestyle and set of expectations. Growing up in an affluent community, my family had rarely encountered people outside their social circle, and I worried about how they might react to someone from Megan's background. One evening, I invited Megan to a family dinner. She was a bit nervous, which was unusual for her, but I assured her that my family would love her. We arrived at my parents' house, a large, tastefully decorated home that seemed almost excessive in comparison to Megan's modest apartment. Megan looked around, her eyes wide but polite, and I could tell she was trying to adjust. Dinner began smoothly, but subtle comments from my family started to slip into the conversation. My mother, ever the socialite, asked Megan where she liked to vacation. Megan answered honestly, explaining that her family had never really taken vacations, as they couldn't afford to travel when she was growing up. My mother's smile faltered for a moment, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. As the evening went on, my family's comments, though unintentional, seemed to highlight the differences between Megan's life and ours. I could see Megan's discomfort growing, and I felt torn, proud of her for staying true to herself, but frustrated with my family for their insensitivity. Megan, for her part, handled every question with grace, politely redirecting the conversation or finding common ground wherever she could. After dinner, my mother pulled me aside, her tone gentle but concerned. "She seems lovely, dear, but are you sure she's the right fit? She seems different." The comment stung, and I realized how deeply I cared for Megan, how her values and kindness had become so important to me. "Yes, Mom," I replied, firm but respectful. "Megan might be different from us, but that's part of what makes her so incredible." When Megan and I left, I apologized for the evening's awkwardness, feeling embarrassed by my family's behavior. She squeezed my hand, giving me a reassuring smile. "It's okay," she said softly. "I knew they'd be different from us, but I can see where you get your kindness. And that's all that matters to me." In that moment, I knew Megan's strength went beyond her resilience. It was her ability to accept people as they were, even when they didn't always do the same for her. Her grace reminded me that love wasn't about blending perfectly, it was about supporting each other, especially when things felt imperfect. After that dinner with my family, I found myself reflecting deeply on the values Megan had introduced into my life. Her modest background wasn't something I needed to shield or defend, it was a core part of who she was, a strength that had shaped her outlook and brought us closer together. The differences between us had once seemed significant, but now they felt like gifts, insights that made me appreciate things in ways I never had before. One weekend, I decided to surprise Megan with a day out, but this time, instead of choosing an extravagant activity, I planned something simple, a picnic in the park. I packed sandwiches, a few snacks, and a bottle of wine. When we arrived, Megan's face lit up. "This is perfect," she said, taking in the peaceful surroundings. We spent the afternoon laughing, talking, and sharing stories. As we sat there on the grass, Megan opened up about her dreams, things she had always wanted but had felt were out of reach. "I'd love to travel one day, even if it's just a road trip," she admitted, her eyes shining with excitement. "But more than that, I want to make a difference, to help people who come from places like mine." Her words resonated with me. She wasn't just focused on building a comfortable life, she wanted to give back, to uplift others. I realized that Megan's humility and empathy weren't just traits, they were the driving forces behind everything she did. Inspired by her vision, I found myself reevaluating my own priorities. I had been raised to equate success with status and wealth, but Megan's influence had me questioning what truly mattered. That day, as we talked about our dreams and shared aspirations, I made a silent promise to prioritize experiences, values, and people over material gain. By the time the sun began to set, I felt a renewed sense of purpose, one I knew would shape our future together. Megan's simplicity wasn't just an adjustment, it had become the foundation of what I wanted in life. And as we watched the sky turn shades of pink and orange, I realized that her dreams had become my own. In the months that followed, Megan and I continued building a life that blended our two worlds. Our relationship felt stronger than ever, rooted in honesty, mutual respect, and a shared vision of the future. We found a rhythm that balanced the life I had known with the values she held close, creating a new understanding of happiness that went beyond wealth or possessions. One evening, as we prepared dinner in my small apartment, I decided it was time to talk about something that had been on my mind for a while. "Megan," I began, setting down my knife, "I know we come from different backgrounds, but I want us to build something lasting together. I want you to know that I'm committed to this, to us." Megan looked at me, her face softened with emotion. "I've always known we were different, but I think that's why we work so well. You've shown me new possibilities, and I've never felt judged for where I come from." I took her hand, my heart full of gratitude and resolve. "I want to make sure that the life we build reflects who we both are. Let's create something meaningful, something that brings us both joy and purpose." Over the following weeks, we made plans together, both practical and visionary. We agreed to prioritize experiences over material luxuries, choosing to save for future travels rather than fancy possessions. Megan encouraged me to get involved with local charities and community projects, something I'd always been too busy to consider but now felt deeply fulfilling. We began volunteering at a local food bank on weekends, finding a shared sense of purpose that brought us closer. Every small act of giving, every moment of working alongside people from all walks of life, deepened our bond and reminded me of the strength in Megan's heart. Our differences, once sources of discomfort or awkwardness, had become the foundation of our relationship. We had created a life together that honored her humility and my openness to change, one filled with mutual respect and an understanding that true richness was found in love, purpose, and shared dreams. As we looked toward the future, I knew that no matter where life took us, Megan's influence would always be the grounding force in our lives. Together, we had bridged the gap between our worlds and found a home in each other's hearts, a place where love had proven that it could transcend any boundary. Bye-bye.